Hello and good morning, friends. Today we will be dealing with the topic of renal calculi. Now, we all know in day-to-day practice the number of patients suffering from renal calculi is in thousands. And as a homeopath, we also know that homeopathy has got the best solution for the problems of renal calculi. So we start from etiological factors. The first etiological factor is the role of vitamins. Yeah, there is a role of vitamins in the formation of renal calculi. How? Number one, vitamin A deficiency can cause epithelial desquamation, and this desquamation can act as a nidus for the formation. That is the starting point for the formation of renal calculi. Now, there is a role of yet another vitamin, that is vitamin D, and deficiency of vitamin A is responsible. In the other way, excess of vitamin D is also responsible for formation of renal calculi. Hyperparathyroidism is one more thing which comes in consequence, which can cause bilateral, multiple, recurrent renal calculi. So every time a patient comes to us with such complaints that he or she is having recurrent stones, or the number of stones is excessive, or they are bilateral, in spite of taking treatment, in spite of operation, they are coming back, you have to rule out hyperparathyroidism also. Number 3 is altered urinary solutes and colloids. Now, what is this urinary solute? So, whenever there is dehydration, the chances of concentration of urinary solutes will increase in the solution, and it will tend to precipitate. This precipitation means renal calculi formation. Number 3 is there is something called as decreased urinary citrate. What is this urinary citrate? This urinary citrate is a thing which keeps insoluble salts suspended in the urine. It doesn't allow them to deposit. Whenever the levels of urinary citrate will fall, the chances of renal calculi are more. This excretion of the urinary citrate is under hormonal control and decreases during menstruation, and therefore the females during menstruation especially should drink more water. Number 4, renal infection. Any kind of infection in the kidney will favor the formation of urinary stones. Now, number 5 is inadequate urinary drainage and urinary stasis. So, all the causes of urinary stasis, it can be bladder outflow obstruction, or it can be urethral. All the causes of bladder outflow obstruction actually come under the heading of inadequate urinary drainage and urinary stasis, and it will favor the formation of renal calculi. Prolonged immobilization is one more cause. Every time the patient has to be immobile. Now it can be because of multiple reasons. It can be just sheer weakness. It can be hemiplegia, paraplegia. It can be fracture neck femur. It can be otherwise also any other cause of immobilization will make the patient prone for renal calculi. Hyperparathyroidism we have already talked of. The last in the list is something called as Randall's plaque. Now, Randall was a person who suggested for the very first time that lesion, rather erosion at the tip of renal papilla will predispose the patient for renal calculi. Deposition of calcium on this erosion will form something called as Randall's plaque, and this plaque is the starting point for the formation of renal calculi. That was suggested by Randall. Of course, it doesn't apply in all the patients of renal calculi, but one theory of Randall should be remembered. Now, this is all about the etiological factors of renal calculi. Number 2 is types of renal calculi. Now, we all know there are 5 important types of renal calculi. The most common is oxalate calculi. Oxalate calculi are formed by calcium oxalate. These are the stones which are irregular in shape. Of course, they are small, but most of the times they are covered with spiky projections, sharp projections, and these oxalate calculi are mostly responsible for the dramatic presentation of the patient to us. Because every time you will find a patient coming to us with excessive pain, hematuria, infection, usually the culprit is oxalate calculi. Of course, I told you these stones are smaller, but the stones are mostly covered by spikes, sharp projections. Calcium oxalate stone usually is very hard and it is radio opaque. Radio opaque stone is a stone which is easily visible on X-ray. Radiolucent stone is a one which cannot be seen on X-ray. In this case, oxalate calculus is radio opaque. Number 2 is phosphate calculus. This phosphate calculus is usually formed by calcium phosphate. Sometimes it can be ammonium phosphate, magnesium phosphate. Most of the times you will find these phosphate calculi are smooth and the color is dirty white. These stones tend to grow in alkaline urine, and whenever you will find that the stone is a big stone, most of the times sonography report will show a stone of say 20 by 30 millimeters fit in the renal pelvis. You can take it for granted that it is a type of phosphate calculi. This phosphate calculi, as I told you, are generally smooth surfaced, and therefore in most of the instances they will not show you so many signs of renal calculi like pain or hematuria as that of oxalate calculi. Now this is the reason why these stones can be you can just miss these stones. The patient will start complaining of some vague pain in abdomen. The patient will come to the doctor will prescribe some kind of NSAID injection, tablets, and the patient's pain will just subside. So by the time you will diagnose this, you will find it is already very big. Or so many times you will find it as an incidental finding. So you are doing sonography or X-ray for some other reason, and incidentally you find this calculi. So these are mostly silent calculi unless and until they attain a very big size. We call them as stag horn calculi. Now what is the stag? आपण नर हरिण जे असतं आपण त्याला स्टॅग म्हणतो. या हरणाच्या डोक्यावर शिंग असतात, आपल्याला सगळ्यांना माहिती आहे. सो स्टॅग हॉर्न कॅल्क्युलस, स्टॅग म्हणजे या हरणाच्या हॉर्न म्हणजे शिंगांप्रमाणे आपल्याला हे चित्र सगळं दिसू शकतं. सो दिस स्टॅग हॉर्न कॅल्क्युलाय, whenever you find on X-ray or sonography, you take it for granted that these are phosphate calculi. So these phosphate calculi usually need operative procedures because mostly they are very large in size. Third type of stone is uric acid and urate stones. Now these pure uric acid and urate stones are radiolucent, so they are not seen on X-rays. However, in most of the instances, these uric acid stones are mixed with calcium salts and therefore they can be seen on X-rays. But if it is a pure uric acid stone, you will not see it on an X-ray. These uric acid stones are hard, smooth, multiple, yellowish to reddish brown, and most of the times you will find them in patients suffering from uricosuric drugs. So the drugs which will favor the excretion of uric acid via urine, those drugs are called as uricosuric drugs. People who are undergoing chemotherapy, they are also going to release plenty of uric acid. They are going to generate plenty of uric acid, and this uric acid is going to get excreted via kidney. So you will find that these people who are undergoing chemotherapy are given plenty of IV fluids. One reason for it is to prevent stagnation of these uric acid stones in the urinary tract. Fourth and fifth type of renal calculi are rather uncommon. They are called as cystine calculi and xanthine calculi. They will be seen in a rare metabolic error of cystine and xanthine metabolism respectively. Now this is about the types. Now what will be the clinical features of renal calculi? One important thing we all have to remember is so many of these renal calculi are asymptomatic. They are called as silent stones. Even if they are staghorn calculi, say the size can be 20 by 30 millimeter, and still you don't find any symptoms whatsoever. So silent stones are common. Number 2 is pain as a clinical feature. Now pain is in most of the people, at least 75 to 80% of the people, you will find that pain will be there. This pain can be fixed renal angle pain, which is located in the renal angle. Then there can be ureteric pain. Now the stone which is present in the kidney, it can come down in the ureter and it can present to us as ureteric calculi. We all know, we all have seen the patients of ureteric calculi, and we all know the agony of the people suffering from ureteric calculi. Now, along with pain, one more important clinical feature can be hematuria. Hematuria will be mostly seen in oxalate calculi. That is again more commonly seen in ureteric calculus. Now, there will be one more thing called as pyuria, that is presence of pus cells in the urine. Sometimes it can be frank pyuria if the patient has developed some kind of infection. Sometimes it is only mechanical effects of stones irritating the genital tract, irritating the urinary tract, and this can cause pyuria even in the absence of infection. How do we diagnose? So we all know important is radiography, X-ray, KUB, kidney, ureter and bladder. So that KUB film is taken preferably on an empty stomach after giving tablet Gas-X and Delcolax, that is to prevent gaseous shadows interfering with the result. There is something called as IVP, that is intravenous pyelography, which can be used for the diagnosis of stones. And very important non-invasive procedure is sonography of abdomen and pelvis, which gives fairly good results in skilled hands. How do we treat renal calculi? So we know there can be conservative management in the form of giving plenty of fluids orally. There are so many Ayurvedic preparations available in the market, but homeopathy has got excellent role in the treatment of conservative management of renal calculi patients. Stones less than 0.5 centimeter in diameter will pass on their own. They don't need much medication also. Of course, we can give homeopathic medicines for the easy passage of the stones. The stones which are bigger may not pass on their own, and then they may need operative management. Now, this operative management, as an undergraduate student, we don't need to go in the details of operative procedures, but we should know the names of the procedures and what exactly is done. So one of the important procedure applied is PCNL, percutaneous nephrolithotomy. This percutaneous nephrolithotomy can be done in two ways. It can be a major PCNL or it can be a mini PCNL. Then there is something called as extracorporeal short wave lithotripsy. We commonly know this as only lithotripsy. So a machine is placed outside the body, and with the help of short waves, the stone is we try to disrupt the stone, we try to fragment the stone, and by giving IV fluids we try to remove it. Then there are some open procedures like pyelolithotomy, extended pyelolithotomy, nephrolithotomy, etc. Most important part is prevention. How do we prevent renal calculi? So the prevention includes drinking plenty of fluid. This advice was given by Hippocrates long time ago. Drink plenty of fluids and you will be able to keep the stone away. Of course, it doesn't help in all the patients. So the people who are having recurrent stones, bilateral stones or multiple stones, they should be advised to undergo some investigations like serum calcium, serum uric acid, urinary urate, urinary calcium, urinary phosphate. 24 hours urine is needed for all these, and analysis of these stones may also be done in severe cases. Dietary advice may not be useful in all the patients, because if the patient is already having a balanced diet, what dietary advice are we going to advise? However, people who are eating excessive fish, excessive red meat, people who are consuming excessive milk products, they should be asked to avoid all those things. Homeopathy has got excellent role if we give constitutional medicine based on patient's symptomatology. It will definitely help the patient not only to treat the existing renal stone disease, but also to prevent the recurrence of the disease. Now this is all about renal calculi. If I missed any point or if you are having any doubts, please let me know. Thank you.